special Native Vote webinar with some really exciting announcements and an opportunity for us to have some conversation about really making a difference as we make every Native vote count in 2014. I'm going to start with a couple of administrative items. For those of you who don't know me and my distinctive Australian accent here, I am Peter Morris. I am the Native Vote lead here at the National Congress of American Indians, and it's a pleasure to have you with us. I'm going to take you through some of the features of the webinar for those who aren't familiar, and as a reminder for those who are. You should see on your screen the PowerPoint for today's presentation, and if during the presentation you experience any lag, it could be just the webinar system making its way to you, so just give it a few extra seconds to update on your screen. Currently, with the exception of the panelists, all of the participants are in listen-only mode, and we'll keep the phone lines on mute until the conclusion of the presentation. As I mentioned, there will be opportunities for questions throughout as we share some of the details, and Mark's part of the presentation in particular will be an opportunity for folks to feedback on some of the ideas that we're thinking about. So we would really value your active participation. If you'd like to ask a question at any point in time, you have the question box that you can see on the screen here where you can type in a question for us and we can answer it. We'll probably pause at the end of each of the sections to answer some questions. If you prefer to ask the question using your phone, you have the little raised hand button with the green arrow there on your screen. So do feel free to go ahead and use that. If you're going to use that option, please do make sure that you've entered the audio pin on your screen and that you've taken care of that. As I mentioned, and you can see another both the hand and the area to enter the questions there on the slide. As I mentioned, Mark Trahan has joined us as a panelist, and we're excited to have him share some ideas he has about Native Vote and social media. And I am going to, without further ado, and you can see how to open and close your panel there, to test your audio, make sure that the pin's in there, and particularly if you want to ask a question. So I want to start with an overview of the agenda for today's webinar. We will be talking about the Native Vote Community Grant opportunities. We're very excited to have secured our grant with the Ford Foundation, and so we're able to offer the community grants that we offered in the 2012 cycle as well. I want to talk a little bit about Native Vote Action Week, which is September 22nd through 26th, and we want to talk about Native Vote and social media with Mark Trahan. So in terms of the Native Vote Community Grants, and the application link is in the next slide, so you can start submitting your applications today if you would like. The community grants up to $2,000 to tribal communities and Native nonprofits for voter outreach and civic engagement efforts. The grantees must be, as you can see on the slide there, a tribe or Native nonprofit. They must be in compliance with IRS rules and regulations regarding nonpartisan voter education, because the Native Vote campaign itself is a nonpartisan campaign. You need to be willing to provide a detailed report on the impact of your efforts, and you need to be able to maintain active engagement in the Native Vote campaign. So those are the four key key features there. And then this next page, we'll wait to populate. Those who are in the strongest position to secure a grant are those who are conducting activities with an ongoing civic engagement focus. Many of you who have been a part of our webinars in the past know that we have a vision for Native Vote, which is being charted out by NCAI's leadership to look toward 2020 and even beyond to build a sustaining effort to revitalize civic engagement in Indian country. So we want partners through the Native Vote Community Grant Investment who will conduct their activities with an ongoing effort to engage their citizens, get voters interested, involved, and working with their community on an ongoing basis. Working in NCAI's target states, which are outlined on the Native Vote website, that is definitely not a kind of deal breaker there. As many of you have heard me say before, the Native Vote is a national campaign, but we will certainly look at Native Vote focus states and also those who are conducting youth outreach activities particularly. You've heard us say before from the leadership level here at NCAI and throughout Indian country that that number, 500,000 Native youth who turn 18 every 4 years, is a key focus of the Native Vote campaign, revitalizing civic engagement there. To apply, you can use that tiny URL that's on the screen, tinyurl.com/NativeVoteGrant14. The deadline that we have set is September 22nd, 2014 at noon Eastern. The reason for that is simply that we're very close to the election, and that date will allow us to get paperwork from the successful grantees and try and get checks cut and sent out to folks. Our goal date is actually the end of September, September 30th, and we'll be moving forward with that. So those are the features in terms of the community grant. The other thing that I'll mention, which is on the application as well, is the fact that we are about ready, and this will probably launch tomorrow. We're about ready to launch the Native Vote web store, which will allow tribes to purchase T-shirts and bumper stickers and all sorts of things like that. And so if you are interested in receiving a grant that will help your activities as part or in full as just a materials credit, then we may be able to get the materials to you more quickly using that strategy over going through the kind of grant process of needing a grant letter and a couple other things from you. So that's something else that will be posted on the Native Vote website and is available on that application form right now. So at this point in time, where I'm ready, I've kind of said what I needed to say in terms of the, oh sorry, I just scrolled through there, in terms of the community grant. So I'd be happy to take any questions. So again, if you need to raise your hand, use that button in your in the webinar interface screen there, or go ahead and also ask a question in the question box. So I'll give you a chance to do that. There's a couple of questions about audio. I believe that's been resolved right now. There's a question from Aaron about the grant amount. And again, for those of you who received Native Vote grants last time around, you'll be aware of the fact that we have we offered grants up to that $2,000 figure, and we're obviously interested in receiving grants from folks. We provided grants ranging from, I think, $500 up to the maximum last time around, and we provided grants to organizations ranging from youth to tribal organizations to Native nonprofits and even regional organizations. So that is certainly the answer to that question. I'm looking to see if there are any other questions here. Just bear with me while I check if there are any raised hands. So hold on. So I see Julia Fleeman has her hand raised. I'm going to go ahead and take you off mute, Julia. Go ahead and ask your question.
My question was just how to get the audio onto mic and speakers, and I accidentally clicked on that early when I was trying to figure out what I was doing.
Oh, good. Well, I'm glad we got that resolved for you.
Well, no, I'm still on the telephone rather than on the mic and speakers, so I don't know. Is it possible to switch over? I'm sorry, I saw you doing slides, but I couldn't get through.
Let me. If you go into your audio mode, it should be on your screen right now. Do you see that on the screen?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
And you should be able to, instead of selecting use telephone, which you should have selected right now, you can go ahead and select use mic and speakers.
Yeah, I've been doing that, but it doesn't switch over. I don't want to waste people's time. I can continue to use the phone, but I just, since I have to click on the wrong button. Thank you for taking it.
Oh, no problem at all. Thank you. If anyone else has questions, feel free to go ahead and raise your hand. I'm going to keep scrolling through to the participants. It's great to have a great group of people here. I have Sue Matters has a question. I'm going to take you off mute, Sue. Go ahead, Sue.
I was just playing with the buttons, too. I didn't really have a question.
Okay, no problem at all.
I'll ask a question, though. So you'll send us this PowerPoint after the fact?
Yes, absolutely. We can send it to folks who are on the webinar for sure. And we'll post it on the Native Vote website as well.
Excellent.
And looks like those are all the questions that we have at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and move on here past the community grants and to talk about Native Vote Action Week. Now, as many of you know, we had a wildly successful Native Vote Action Week in 2012. Many of you were involved in that. Over 50,000 people throughout Indian country were reached. There's a version of the map there on your slide that shows you everywhere from Maine to Alaska and from California to Florida. We had a wonderfully successful Native Vote Action Week. We provide resources, both virtual resources through posters and videos and other things on the Native Vote website, and also the possibility of ordering Native Vote Action Week kits. So you can host a Democracy Day class or session, and I have some exciting news that through a partnership with our partners at the National Indian Education Association, next week we'll be posting a range of options, a kind of roadmap for teachers and youth programs to use with younger children to adapt our Native Vote Democracy Day class session, a voter registration guide, phone banking, rally or event. And you can sign up to participate and receive a free Native Vote Action Week kit. The deadline is actually this Thursday, September 11th, for you to get that kit on time. So go ahead, you can use the link there on your page, which is linked off of our Native Vote website as well. So if folks have any questions about if folks have any questions at all about Native Vote Action Week, feel free to ask them now. Otherwise, I will hand things over to Mark Trahan, who's going to share with us about the social media aspect of the campaign and some ideas that he has in that department. Mark, you are off mute, and we're ready to go with your presentation. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you all for joining. This has come out from a series of columns, and really it goes back to George Bush a decade ago. And when I asked the president a question about tribal sovereignty and it went viral, it made me interested in social media in a big way. And so for the next 10 years, I've been really trying to learn everything I can about social media and how it's changing the nature of communication. This election, from my perspective anyway, really well, many folks probably remember the Winter Challenge. And when I was doing the Winter Challenge, I was at the base of Denali and jumped in the snow. And when I did the challenge, I laid out the idea, what if this was also used for an election, not just for getting people to jump in the water or ice or snow. And then again, I thought of that when the Ice Bucket Challenge came, and the wild success of that, now $100 million for the LCS Challenge. Why not, again, why not the same sort of thing for the election and create an election surprise with Native voters? And so for the past few weeks, I've been writing about that. About a week ago, I got the notion that in order to create more enthusiasm about the election and interest, none of the media institutions that I was watching were really jumping on this election cycle with any kind of consistency. So I decided to blog about it, not every day, but pretty close to every day. And so from now until November, I'm going to try to post really often pieces that just interest me, and again, try to build that enthusiasm and interest for this election cycle. So we can go to the slides. First, before actually, in terms of social media, and then the slides, okay, I'm sorry. In terms of social media, it's really important to note that what we're really talking about is reaching the millennial generation. And the millennial generation is connected in ways that we can only imagine, and they've grown up that way. One way to think about them would be digital natives. Not only do they have roots in our world, but they have roots in the digital world that exceed those beyond our imagination. In fact, one study that I just saw is if you look at number of millennials who read newspapers, it's pretty close to 0. But if you look at what they're doing digitally, it's in the high 90s. So this is the entire world, and part of that world is creating things. In fact, Eric Schmidt from Google said that every day we're creating more content than all of human history, 5 exabytes of data. And it's little postings, it's YouTube clips. YouTube is now the largest television channel, to think of it that way. It's the second largest search engine. It's now kind of the language, the currency of this generation. So when you look at the election kind of in general, as I was looking at the landscape, it occurred to me, and again, I put this in a column Monday, that what if we took a look at the places where there was some success stories, whether it be New Mexico or Montana, and then set that as the standard. And so if you set that as the standard level of what you can accomplish, New Mexico with a 77% registration rate, what can you build from that? And that's kind of where I'm starting my premise for this election coverage, is not just looking at where we need to work on, but looking at levels of success and then saying this ought to be the standard everywhere. So the column I did Monday, I actually looked at doing that, and then looking backwards, you can only kind of calculate so far, but at a very minimum, if we were able to do what happened in New Mexico in Alaska, it would be a very minimum of 24,000 new votes, which is pretty significant when you consider that the next Speaker of the House lost his election by 36,000 votes. Or the guy that won only had 36,000 votes. It was pretty small in that sense. We can go to the next slide. Okay, I think I already passed that one. Okay, we know that Native millennials, digitally connected, can't imagine a world that wasn't. What's really unique about this generation is that they're the first generation that the majority considers themselves independent. They don't identify with any party. And I don't have any data to see if that applies to native millennials, but just from conversations, I'm hearing that a lot. So I think the anecdotal evidence actually matches broadly with the broader evidence. One thing we're knowing is this generation is weighed down by debt, and yet they're optimistic about the future and ready to make a difference. Some of the and really, there's some good research from the Pew Center as a great source of information for some of this stuff. And one of the things that shows up is that this generation is ready to take a job that pays less if they feel like they can make a difference. And that's the highest value they have going into the workforce. They're already in the workforce, and it's now 1 in 3, and that number is just going to continue to grow. And of course, Indian country is younger. So all of these things that are just starting as a wave for the larger population will be hitting Indian country just a little bit later and lasting a little bit longer, which for us I think is a remarkable opportunity. I think next one. So we already know what worked. Winter Challenge had thousands and thousands of videos. If you Google Winter Challenge 2014, you have pages and pages to go through. Each of the views were in the hundreds, some of them in the thousands. Just last week, A Tribe Called Red Sisters video passed 300,000 views on YouTube, and of course NCAI is proud to be is at now 3.19 million on YouTube. So we can see that we already have the potential to go viral with stuff that's already out there. So now it's just experimenting to see what could go viral with stuff that would move this election. And I just pulled these off the internet for the large part, except for one of them. And I'll just give you some examples of some ideas I had of things that could go. First of all, whatever, I can go back one. Sorry. Keep it simple. We know this generation is interested in humor as a value. It's not just something to incorporate, but it's an important one. It's really important in journalists because we think of the Daily Show as something outside the mainstream, but in this world, it is the mainstream. So people will tell their own story, their own way. It's going to be different as it goes along. It's really important to celebrate each post and pass it along. It's that retweeting and sharing that makes the difference in this sort of thing. Build platforms to amplify messages. An example of that would be create a Facebook page just for the Native Vote Challenge. And then I think a second one you could create would just be for first-time Native voters. One of the opportunities you have with social media is actually to build lists. So you can know who's doing what, where, and then you can start to build a metric that you can share over time. And by that same measure, try to be strategic with hashtags. You want one that's short. You want one that's going to be able to be shared by lots of people over time and remembered easily. And so hashtags are really important to be as strategic as possible. Okay, now we can. So here are a couple examples. These are the original women who did the Native Vote Challenge or the Winter Challenge. And I just have them making fun of their challenge. And it could be anybody. It doesn't have to be them. This is just an example. So last winter, I did the Winter Challenge. It was cold. It was fun. Now I'm registering to vote, and I'm casting my ballot this election day. I'm voting because I want the Violence Against Women Act to apply here in Alaska. It's just an example. These are Canadian, so it wouldn't be literal. We can do this year. We can win the Native Vote Challenge. Video, people doing it themselves, getting specific about why they're voting, and then specific about who they know out there who needs to register and take care of this. Next one. Let's see, next slide. Same thing with Rock Your Mocks, incredibly successful social media campaign. Take advantage of everybody. It'll happen after Election Day, so, but it's that same sort of social media challenge where people did something fun, they shared it, they passed along. Now if we can take it to the next step and have them take that same passion for social media to voting booth, we'll be there. The next one. I think one of the challenges, this is me, with IDs, is encourage people to actually take their tribal ID to the polls as a way to let the larger world know that this fight wasn't just academic and it does matter. And it sends a message to those who didn't want us to use tribal IDs. And again, the same kind of messaging. Next one. This one I think is probably the most important thing at all. And this is my son and my niece, and is to get that first voter out there. To get them excited, not just about registering to vote and doing it, but then to pass it along to this. One of the really remarkable things about social media is if you think about just a generation ago, we would have to go to every college campus in the country, have a rally, get people excited, get them registered and stuff up. Now you can do that digitally. You can get people to do it for themselves and get them excited in a college campus and pass this on. So I think being able to, one, get excited this first-time voter, but then to chronicle them and to put them into a database so we know who they are and why they voted for the first time and where they go from there. And is that the last slide? Oh, like I mentioned, I'm going to be blogging like crazy. Feel free to use my material any way that's helpful to you. If that means sharing it, fine. It means taking it and just using it, take my name off it, I don't care. I just want to get the word out, and you're free to do that. One of the things I did this summer to kind of build for this event is built my own app. We know that this generation tends to consume information on cell phones rather than on web pages. So I actually have an app to do that. Now 85% of millennials consume on cell phones rather than on the web. So, and the web, you can find that on any platform, Apple or Android, at Trahant Reports. And with that, I think I'd be happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you, Mark. We do have a few questions. Reminder again that in the screen part that is your webinar link, you have the opportunity to either type in a question or to raise your hand. Please make sure that your audio is set if you're going to raise your hand. We've had some questions, just to take care of a couple of administrative ones before I put some folks who raise their hands, give them a chance to ask questions. The list of native vote focus states is on the nativevote.org website. There's a focus state link there for those interested in that as they think about compiling their application for the Native Vote grant. And also the audio of this webinar will be posted on the NCAI YouTube channel and also cross-posted on the Native Vote website. So at this stage, I see a hand from Joe McGimsey. So Joe, I'm going to unmute you and you can ask your question. Go ahead, please, Joe.
Good afternoon. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Can you hear me?
Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Joe.
And it's an honor to be on this site with you, and of course with the wonderful Trahant. You are an amazing man, and thank you for your time. Is Washington State a focus state in applying for these grants?
It is, Joe, yes.
Oh, cool. Well, I will do everything possible to fill out the form, and I live in Nia Bay, Washington at the Makah Indian Reservation. We're the beginning of this great state of Washington. Mm-hmm. You have to come through Makah to go to the rest of the world.
We're glad you're on. Thanks so much, Joe.
So how do I sign up for Mr. Trahant's report stutter?
You know, there is links here on your screen now. At the bottom of the screen, there is a link for the Trahant Reports app. Mark, do you want to, is there anything else you want to share there too?
Sure. I'm really all over the place. One of the things I tried to do is just get it out so I have no pride of ownership. The easiest place, if you're a Facebook user, there's a Trahant Reports page on Facebook. The app is a great way to get stuff directly to your phone, and that's free, and you can just download it from either the Apple Store or Google Play. And then, of course, other publications pick up my material as a third alternative.
Thank you, Mark, and thank you so much, Joe. So we've had a few more questions come in, so I'll let Mark answer a question from Amy Spark-Dubmeyer. She asks, you've projected native vote can make a unique difference in some races. Do you have any examples that you have on your mind?
Well, Alaska would be first and foremost. I think Alaska could be a decidedly different place if native vote matched the New Mexico standard of 77% registration. I think the Dakotas certainly, and Montana has already done well, but it certainly could keep adding to that. So definitely throughout the West, almost anywhere you pick.
And we on the Native Vote side are certainly tracking races that are of particular interest to Indian country. There are congressional races and gubernatorial races where there are Native candidates for lieutenant governor, for example, in Alaska and New Mexico, and other places where ballot initiatives in Montana are about voter ID. So there's a range of different races that we're tracking. There are two submitted questions about focus states to do with the grant. One is about Michigan being a focus state from Craig, and the answer to that is yes. And Chrissy asked a question about California being an other state, which is a strange way to describe California, I know, although some people may choose to describe California that way. I would say that and I said this as we were sharing it, the question of whether or not the state is designated as the focus state won't make the decision, and so everyone who chooses to apply will be fully considered and will be eligible. As we've seen, and Jackie Peta has made this point in previous webinars, it's very difficult to predict sometimes the states that will make a difference in particular election cycles, and we want to be a part of partnering with folks to build sustaining civic education infrastructure, and we have a particular focus on the need for Native youth. Now,
one other thing
ahead.
I should also mention is that as it gets closer to the election, I'll try to go through state by state and write about that particular state. And I've already building some stuff for both New Mexico and Wisconsin, which have some very interesting races that directly impact Indian country.
That's helpful, Mark. Thanks. And a couple of folks, Dustin Monroe and some others, have made the point that it would be super helpful to have a focused Native Vote challenge. And the good news from my perspective is that we will be doing that from the Native Vote perspective. And we value feedback. You can either send it to us by email, my email address, pmorris@ncai.org, or nativevote@gmail.com. Feel free to send your ideas about this Native Vote challenge. Mark and I have been talking about a range of ideas, and we're going to throw a few things against the wall, so it's not like we'll have just one thing, but we will do some coordinated efforts around Native Vote. Action Week will be a key focus area, but we'll be doing a number of different things to draw attention to Native Vote this 2014 cycle. So I have another raised hand, so I'm gonna go ahead and Warren Wawiton, sorry for mispronouncing your name. If you have a question and would like to share it, sir, go ahead. You're unmuted. Please ask your question.
Oh, can you hear us? Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Vivian, and I'm with the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation, and we have a group of people here, and we're really excited to be here. We want to get everybody registered, and so I guess my question really was, since the week is next week, are we going to have enough time to get organized to get things done for next week? Will this webinar talk to us about that?
Yeah, so for Native Vote Action Week, the good news is it's actually a week and a half from now. It begins on the 22nd of September and goes through the 26th. We have an additional webinar. What we would encourage folks to do is go ahead and sign up using the link that we showed earlier. I can scroll back to that in our slides. The link that we showed earlier that allows you to sign up for materials, nativevote.org/page/nv-action-week-sign-up. You can get a direct link. You don't have to type that all into your browser, but you can get a direct link from the nativevote.org website. And we will send follow-up materials about how to plan your Action Week event, how to do a registration event. We actually have online tools on our website and paper voter registration forms that you can use to execute your event. And we'll be having a webinar next week, which I think is on one of our final slides, but we'll be having a webinar next week on the 18th that will be for coordinators and others who have organized events to provide kind of last-minute support, direction to some of the virtual resources that we have. But we'd really like to get folks registered by this Thursday so that we can get materials out to you in time to help you, free T-shirts and some buttons and stickers and other things. Does that help?
Yep, it does. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We're excited about having you guys involved. I'm looking, and I'm just, please do feel free to raise your hand if you have further questions. I'm seeing some questions in the comment box, too. I have Matt from Wisconsin who's asking about merging tribal enrollment data with the voter activation network. We can follow up, Matt, and I apologize we haven't had a chance to connect, but we can certainly follow up offline to make that happen. Some of you know that NCAI has a partnership with State Voices that allows tribes as part of Native Vote to access the voter file with some enhanced information about folks who are registered. You can do reports on the geography of your reservation to see if what are the real challenges. Is it people being registered, or is it people who are registered but not showing up to vote? You can generate lists to make phone calls, to do either walk or drive around your community to knock on people's doors, and that's another tool in advance of Native Vote Action Week that you can use. So that's important. I have a question from Kyle from Arizona about the eligibility for the Native Vote Grant and who can receive it. I'll tell you, Kyle, and feel free to submit an application. It's a pretty basic application. We're not looking for a whole lot of detailed information, but we do need organizations to apply that can comply with the IRS rules around voter registration and around nonpartisan activity. So if it is a Democratic caucus, I think is part of Kyle's question, then I'm not sure it would be eligible. But that is something that we can explore. And do feel free to email me or the nativevote@gmail.com address. So we'd be happy to dialogue further about that. So I'll give another moment if folks have questions they'd like to ask by raising their hands. Please do go ahead and do so. I'll continue to watch that part of the screen here. I'm going to advance this back past Mark's slides here. Mark, are there any other kind of comments or final reflections that you want to offer before I offer some further updates and logistics regarding the grants and upcoming events?
No, I think the biggest one is to try to experiment and get stuff produced by young people up on the social media space and just see what happens and let it go organic. And I think you'll be pleased with what happens.
Great, Mark. Thank you so much. So I have some confusing dates here. I'm sorry about that. As I mentioned, the coordinator call, which we'll do as a webinar, and we'll post information about it to prepare for Native Vote Action Week, that will actually be on September 18th. We'll get that corrected in the final slides when we post them. And our next webinar is actually not on the Tuesday the 7th. It's on Thursday the 2nd. So we'll continue our practice of the first and third Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. Eastern going forward after this webinar. So again, I want to thank Mark Trahant for a great presentation, and you'll be hearing more from us. And I would love to hear from you. You can contact nativevote@gmail.com or my direct email address, cmorris@ncai.org, with further ideas. And we will keep the conversation going. Please do be encouraged to sign up for your Native Vote Action Week events by this Thursday, and do go ahead and consider applying for the Native Vote Community Grants. We'd love to have a healthy number of applications there. So thank you again for a great webinar conversation. Thank you, Mark, for a great presentation, and we look forward to continuing to work with you all to make every Native vote count this election cycle. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.